The rusty airlock was the kind of bar where people came to disappear. It sat on Kepler Station, a spinning metal ring at the edge of nowhere, where a dozen different species drank cheap alcohol and pretended they had somewhere better to be. The lights were dim. The music was bad. The bartender had 4 arms and asked no questions. Marcus Cole liked it here. He sat alone at the corner of the bar, his back to the wall because old habits died hard. His jacket was worn at the elbows. His boots had walked 1,000 cargo bays. His hands were rough from years of fixing engines that should have been scrapped decades ago. He was 43 years old, and he looked every year of it that the synth whiskey tasted like paint thinner. But it was cheap, and cheap was all Marcus could afford these days. His freighter, the Drifting Hope, needed new fuel cells. His accounts held 17 credits. His ex-wife had taken everything else in the divorce, including his dignity. He was thinking about nothing in particular when the vampire ship docked. The whole station felt it. A deep vibration through the metal bones of Kepler, like a giant had grabbed it and squeezed. Marcus looked up at the display screen above the bar. The ship was called the Crimson Meridian, and it was old. Really old. The kind of old that meant it had been flying through space before humans had figured out fire. Vampires. Marcus had heard of them, like everyone had. They ruled 11 star systems. They lived for thousands of years. They drank blood, though these days they mostly synthesized it. They considered every other species in the galaxy to be somewhere between useful and food. Humans fell into the food category, not that Marcus cared. Vampires didn't come to places like the rusty airlock. They had their own fancy lounges with red velvet and classical music, and probably servants who volunteered to be bitten. The rusty airlock had sticky floors and a toilet that only worked half the time. He went back to his drink. 30 minutes later, she walked in. Marcus didn't know she was a princess. He didn't know her name was Seraphina Valmore Vane, 3rd daughter of the Blood Throne, heir to 3 star systems, and currently the target of a political assassination. He just knew she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, and that she scared him down to his bones. She was tall and pale, with silver hair that fell past her shoulders and eyes the color of fresh blood. She wore a simple black coat, but it probably cost more than everything Marcus had ever owned combined. She moved through the crowd like a knife through water, and everyone got out of her way without being asked. She sat at a table in the middle of the room. A mistake, Marcus thought. Bad position. No cover. No exit route. But what did he know? She was a vampire. She probably didn't worry about things like that. Marcus turned back to his drink. He noticed the 3 Kreth when they came in. Hard not to notice them. Kreth were big, lizard-like, with scales the color of rust and muscles built for killing. They were wearing civilian clothes, but they walked like soldiers. They spread out across the room, taking positions that covered the exits, surrounding the vampire's table. Not my problem, Marcus told himself. Whatever was about to happen, it had nothing to do with him. He was just a freight hauler with 17 credits and a broken ship. He was nobody. One of the Kreth moved past him. Its elbow caught Marcus's shoulder hard and knocked him off his bar stool. His drink spilled across the bar. The Kreth didn't even look at him. It just kept moving, pulling a plasma pistol from under its jacket. The pistol was aimed at the vampire woman. Marcus didn't think. He just moved. Later, he wouldn't be able to explain why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was all those years in the Earth Navy before he washed out. Maybe he was just tired of being pushed around. But his body was already in motion before his brain caught up. He grabbed the Kreth's arm and twisted. The plasma pistol fired, but the shot went wild, burning a hole in the ceiling. The Kreth roared and spun around, and Marcus hit it. He hit it with everything he had, right in the throat, where the scales were thin. The Kreth went down. The other two Kreth turned toward him. The bar erupted into chaos. People screamed and ran for the exits. Tables flipped. Glass shattered. Marcus picked up a bar stool and threw it at the second Kreth, catching it in the face. The creature stumbled backward, and Marcus was on it before it could recover. Humans were not supposed to be able to fight Kreth. Kreth were bigger, stronger, faster. They had claws and teeth and scales like armor. But humans had something else. Humans had spent millions of years evolving on a planet that wanted to kill them. They had learned to punch above their weight. They had learned to survive. Marcus fought like a man who had nothing left to lose, because he was. The third Kreth came at him with a vibroblade, the edge humming with deadly energy. Marcus dodged the first swing, felt the blade cut the air beside his ear. He grabbed the Kreth's wrist, twisted, and slammed his forehead into the creature's face. Bone crunched. The Kreth screamed. Marcus took the blade from its hand and drove it into the creature's chest. Then it was over. Marcus stood in the middle of the ruined bar, breathing hard. 3 Kreth lay on the floor around him. His knuckles were bleeding. His heart was pounding. He felt alive for the first time in years. He turned around and found the vampire woman standing 3 feet away. She was staring at him with those blood-red eyes, and her expression was impossible to read. Her mouth was slightly open, and Marcus could see her fangs. One of them was cracked. Shattered, really. A piece of it was missing. During the fight, one of the Kreth had swung at Marcus and missed. The elbow had caught the vampire instead, deflected by Marcus's movement. He hadn't even noticed at the time. She reached up and touched her broken fang. When she spoke, her voice was like silk wrapped around a blade. "You shattered my fang," she said. "I didn't mean to," Marcus said. "I was trying to help. You're human. Last time I checked." She smiled then, and it was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just found something interesting. "You're coming with me," she said. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but 4 vampire guards appeared from nowhere, grabbed his arms, and dragged him out of the bar before he could say a word. Behind him, the bartender was already calling for someone to clean up the bodies. Word spread through the Dominion like fire. Princess Seraphina had taken a human bodyguard. A human. The jokes wrote themselves. Lord Varric Valmorvain, her cousin and greatest rival, called it keeping a pet at a gathering of nobles. Her sisters sent messages filled with elegant insults. The servants on the ship whispered when they thought no one could hear. Even the other guards looked at Marcus like he was a walking embarrassment. Marcus didn't care. He had survived worse than gossip. The Crimson Meridian traveled through space for 3 weeks before reaching the Dominion home world. During that time, Marcus learned the ship. He walked every corridor. He memorized every exit. He noted which guards were lazy and which ones took their jobs seriously. He found the blind spots in the security cameras and the places where an assassin might hide. Seraphina watched him work with growing interest. "You never stop," she said one night, finding him in a corridor near her chambers at 3 in the morning. "Neither do assassins," Marcus replied. "But humans need sleep. Your species requires 8 hours of rest to function properly. I have read about this. That's the recommended amount. The actual requirement is much lower." Marcus shrugged. "I can go 3 days without sleep if I have to. 4 if you give me enough coffee. That seems unhealthy." It is. But my ancestors didn't survive by being healthy. They survived by being stubborn. The first assassination attempt on the ship happened 4 days later. A servant brought Seraphina her evening meal, synthetic blood in a crystal glass. Marcus stopped the servant at the door, took the glass, and smelled it. The poison was almost undetectable. Almost. "This is Saradini in it," Marcus said. About enough to kill a vampire in 6 hours. The servant ran. Marcus caught him before he reached the end of the corridor. The interrogation that followed revealed nothing useful. The servant had been paid by someone he never saw. A dead end. But Serafina looked at Marcus differently after that. "How did you know?" she asked. "Saradine has a smell. Very faint. Like bitter almonds. But human senses are weak. You shouldn't have been able to detect it." Marcus smiled. "Humans have weak individual senses. But we're really good at pattern recognition." The smell was wrong. The servant's heartbeat was too fast. His eyes kept looking at the glass. "I didn't know there was poison. I just knew something wasn't right." The second assassination attempt came a week later. 3 attackers in the night, armed with blades designed to kill vampires. They got past the regular guards. They got past the security systems. They did not get past Marcus. He killed 2 of them in the first 10 seconds. The third managed to cut him across the chest before Marcus broke its neck. The wound was deep. Blood soaked through his shirt and dripped onto the floor. By every reasonable measure, Marcus should have collapsed from blood loss. Instead, he stood outside Seraphine's door for the rest of the night, refusing to leave his post until the morning guards arrived. "You need medical attention," Serafina said when she emerged and saw him standing in a pool of his own blood. "After you're safe." Marcus said, "You're dying." "I've been dying since I was born." "Humans do that. We just take longer about it than most." The ship's doctor patched him up. The wound should have taken weeks to heal. Marcus was back on duty in 3 days, held together by stitches and willpower and something the vampires didn't have a word for. Spite, Marcus called it. Pure human spite. The news of the failed assassination spread through the ship, and then through the Dominion's communication networks. People began to talk differently about Seraphine's human guard. Not with respect, exactly, but with something approaching curiosity. Lord Varric heard the news and stopped laughing. "Explain to me," Serafina said one evening, "how a species as fragile as yours ever survived." They were sitting in her chambers, sharing a bottle of wine. Well, Serafina was drinking synthetic blood that looked like wine. Marcus had actual wine, from Earth, a gift from the princess that probably cost more than his old ship. "We didn't survive by being strong," Marcus said. "We survived by being too stupid to quit. Every other species on our planet was bigger or faster or had better teeth. But humans just kept going. We got hurt and we healed. We got knocked down and we got back up. Eventually, the things trying to kill us got tired. We never did. That sounds exhausting. It is. It is. But it's also why we're here." Marcus took a drink. "The universe spent millions of years trying to kill us. It failed. Now we're in space, annoying vampires. I call that a win." Serafina was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. It was a small sound, barely more than a breath. But it was real. "You are the strangest creature I have ever met," she said. "You're not the first person to say that." "I imagine not." She swirled the blood in her glass, watching it catch the light. "My cousin wants me dead. Varric has always believed he should sit on the blood throne instead of my father. Killing me would weaken my father's position. It would prove that our bloodline is not as strong as we claim." "Politics," Marcus said. "Even vampires have politics. Especially vampires. We have had 6,000 years to perfect our hatreds." Serafina looked at him. "The Crimson Conclave is in 2 weeks. All the noble houses will gather. Varric will make his move there. I am certain of it. Then we should be ready." "We?" "You are one human. He will have dozens of warriors, each one centuries old, each one trained to kill. Marcus finished his wine and set down the glass. Princess, let me tell you something about humans. We're small. We're weak. We live barely 100 years, and most of that is spent being tired and confused. But when something threatens the people we care about, we become something else. Something even we don't fully understand. And you care about me? Serafina asked. Her voice was soft, uncertain. Marcus met her eyes. You gave me something to protect. That's more than I've had in a long time. So yeah, Princess, I care about you. And anyone who wants to hurt you is going to have to go through me first. Serafina stared at him. In 300 years, no one had ever spoken to her like that. Her guards protected her because they were ordered to. Her family loved her because blood demanded it. This human protected her because he chose to dot it, change something inside her. Something she didn't have a name for. The Conclave, she said finally. Will you stand with me? I'll stand with you anywhere, Marcus said. Just tell me who to hit. For the second time that night, Serafina laughed. And this time, she didn't try to hide it. The cabin aboard the Crimson Meridian was older than human civilization. Marcus could feel it in his bones as the guards pushed him through the door. The walls were made of some dark wood that didn't exist anymore, carved with symbols that hurt his eyes if he looked at them too long. The furniture was red velvet and black metal. The air smelled like old books and something, sweet that might have been blood. The vampire princess sat in a chair that looked more like a throne. She had changed her clothes. Now she wore a dress of deep crimson that matched her eyes. Her silver hair was pulled back from her face, showing the sharp angles of her cheekbones. She looked like a painting. She looked like a nightmare. The guards left. The door closed. Marcus was alone with her. Do you know who I am? She asked. A vampire, Marcus said. Beyond that, no idea. I am Serafina Valmorvain, third daughter of the Blood Throne, Princess of the Vampire Dominion. Marcus blinked. A princess. He had just saved a princess and broken her tooth. This was either the best or worst day of his life, and he couldn't tell which. Okay, he said. That's impressive. You don't seem impressed. Lady, I've had a long day. 3 Creth tried to kill you. I stopped them. You're welcome, by the way. Can I go now? Seraphine's eyes narrowed. She rose from her chair and walked toward him slowly, like a cat approaching a mouse. Her heels clicked on the metal floor. When she stopped, she was close enough that Marcus could smell her perfume. Something old and expensive and dangerous. You cannot go, she said. You have incurred a blood debt. A what? By Dominion law, your actions cause me injury. My fang is shattered because of you. The debt must be paid. Marcus stared at her. Are you serious? I saved your life. That is not relevant. The law is the law. You have 2 choices. You can serve me until the debt is paid, or you can die. Choose. For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. He looked at this ancient creature, this princess of a species that considered humans to be nothing more than walking blood bags. He thought about his empty bank account, his broken ship, his failed marriage, his meaningless life hauling cargo from one forgotten moon to another. Then he laughed. It started as a chuckle and built into something real. He laughed until tears formed in the corners of his eyes. He laughed like he hadn't laughed in years. Serafina did not laugh. She stood perfectly still, watching him with an expression that might have been shock. No one had ever laughed at her. Not once in 300 years. Her kind had perfected the art of terror. They ruled through fear and power and ancient blood magic. And this human, this fragile little creature with his short life and his soft skin, was laughing at her. Are you mad? She asked. Probably, Marcus said, wiping his eyes. Look, princess, I've got a busted freighter that needs repairs I can't afford. I've got 17 credits to my name. My ex-wife took everything, including my favorite coffee mug. 3 hours ago, I was drinking alone and thinking about how pointless my life had become. And now you're telling me I have to choose between being your servant or dying. Yes, then let me ask you something. Do I get paid? Does this job come with meals? Because I haven't eaten since yesterday. Seraphine's mouth opened, then closed. This was not how this conversation was supposed to go. Humans were supposed to beg. They were supposed to cry and plead and offer anything to save their pathetic lives. They were not supposed to ask about the benefits package. You would truly rather serve me than die? She asked. Princess, I've been serving cargo companies that pay me barely enough to survive for 15 years. At least you're honest about the slavery part. Marcus shrugged. Besides, you clearly need help. Those Kreth weren't random thugs. That was a professional hit. Somebody paid good money to kill you, and your actual guards were nowhere in sight. Something flickered in Seraphine's eyes. Something that might have been surprise, or respect, or both. You noticed that, she said. I spent 8 years in the Earth Navy before they kicked me out. I know an assassination when I see one. Marcus crossed his arms. So here's my counteroffer. I'll pay your blood debt. I'll be your bodyguard. But you treat me like a person, not like food. You pay me something, even if it's just enough to fix my ship. And when the debt is paid, I walk away free. Deal? Seraphina studied him for a long time. In 3 centuries, she had met thousands of humans. Most of them had been weak, trembling things, easily frightened and easily controlled. This one was different. He had fought 3 Kreth with his bare hands and won. He had looked death in the face and asked about dental coverage. He was interesting. Very well, she said finally. You will serve as my personal guard. You will protect me from harm. You will obey my commands. And when I decide the debt is paid, you will be free to go. When you decide. That's not what I said. That is what I am offering. Take it or take death. Marcus thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. Fine, but I want that in writing. Seraphina almost smiled. Almost. You are a strange creature, Marcus Cole. How do you know my name? I had my people check your identification while you were being brought here. You are 43 years old. Born on Earth. Former Navy engineer. Discharged for striking a superior officer. Divorced. No children. No family. No one who would miss you if you disappeared. The word should have hurt, but Marcus had made peace with his loneliness years ago. That's all true. Anything else you want to know? Yes. Seraphina walked back to her throne and sat down, crossing her legs like a queen. Who taught you to fight like that? Nobody taught me. Humans just do that. When something threatens us or the people near us, we fight. It's instinct. But you could have died. Sure, but I would have died doing something that mattered for once. Marcus met her eyes. That's more than most people get. Seraphina was quiet for a moment. Then she reached up and touched her broken fang again. This will take decades to heal. Every time I look in a mirror, I will remember this night. I will remember you. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I have not decided yet. She waved a hand at the door. There are quarters prepared for you. My servants will show you. We leave for the Dominion homeworld tomorrow. I suggest you rest. You will need it. Marcus nodded and turned to leave. At the door, he stopped. Princess? Yes, those people who tried to kill you. Do you know who sent them? For just a moment, something dark crossed Seraphi's face. Fear, maybe. Or anger. Or both. I have my suspicions, she said. But that is not your concern. Your concern is keeping me alive. Fair enough, Marcus said. Just one more question. What? Where can I get something to eat? I really wasn't joking about being hungry. And for the first time in decades, Princess Serafina Valmorvain found herself fighting the urge to smile. The Crimson Conclave was held in a palace made of glass and bone. It floated in orbit above the Dominion home world, a monument to 6,000 years of vampire power. Every noble house sent representatives. Every ancient bloodline gathered in the Great Hall. And every single one of them stared when Princess Serafina walked in with a human at her side. Marcus had been given clothes for the occasion. Black formal wear, tailored to fit him perfectly, with silver buttons that matched the color of Seraphine's hair. He looked almost civilized. Almost. The hall was enormous. 1,000 vampires filled it, each one dressed in finery that cost more than most planets. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, filled with lights that never flickered. The floor was polished marble, dark red like old blood. At the far end, the blood throne sat empty, waiting for the king who would arrive later. "Stay close," Serafina whispered as they walked. "Wasn't planning on leaving," Marcus replied. The whispers followed them like shadows. A human at the conclave. A human guarding a princess. It was unprecedented. It was insulting. It was exactly what Lord Varric needed. He found them halfway across the hall. Varric was tall even for a vampire, with bone-white skin and eyes like black ice. His smile was the kind that made Marcus want to check for knives. "Cousin," Varric said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "How delightful to see you. And you brought your pet." Seraphine's expression didn't change. "Lord Varric, I see you still haven't learned manners. Manners are for those who need them. I prefer honesty." Varric looked at Marcus like he was examining a bug. "Tell me, human, does she keep you on a leash? Does she let you sleep at the foot of her bed?" "She lets me do my job," Marcus said calmly. "Which is more than your guards can say about the 3 assassination attempts she survived." The crowd went quiet. Varric's smile froze. "Assassination attempts? I don't know what you mean." "Sure you don't." Marcus didn't blink. 3 tries in 3 weeks. All failures. All traceable back to people who owed you favors. You're either the unluckiest noble in the Dominion, or you're really bad at killing people. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Varric laughed, a cold sound without any warmth. Bold words from a creature with such a short lifespan. "Do you know how old I am, human? 400 years. I have watched entire civilizations rise and fall. I have drunk the blood of kings. And you think you can threaten me?" "I'm not threatening you," Marcus said. "I'm telling you what happens next. You try to hurt her again, and I'll stop you. That's not a threat. That's a fact." Varric's eyes narrowed. He looked at Serafina, who stood perfectly still beside her human guard. Then he made his move. "I accuse Princess Serafina of contaminating the royal bloodline," he announced, loud enough for the entire hall to hear. "She has taken a human as her guardian. She has shamed our people. She has weakened the blood throne. I demand that her human be executed as an example to all who would forget their place." The crowd erupted in noise. Some vampires shouted in support. Others called for silence. Guards began moving toward Marcus and Serafina, surrounding them. Marcus counted the guards. 20, maybe more. All of them armed. All of them ready to kill him. He didn't flinch. "Is this how vampire justice works?" he asked, his voice cutting through the chaos. "A powerful lord accuses someone he wants dead, and everyone just goes along with it? No trial? No proof? Just murder?" "You are not worthy of a trial," Varric spat. "You are property, cattle. You exist only to serve us." "Then let me tell you something about cattle." Marcus stepped forward, and something in his posture made even the guards hesitate. "Back on Earth, we used to have these animals called bulls. Big, strong, dangerous. People thought they could control them with whips and chains. Most of the time, they were right. But sometimes, a bull would decide it had enough. And then people died. He looked around the hall, meeting as many eyes as he could. You call yourselves predators. You've ruled for 6,000 years. But you've never actually fought for anything, have you? You've fed on species too weak to resist. You've won battles against enemies who were already beaten. You've never met anything that hunted back. And you think humans are such hunters? Varric sneered. I think you've never seen what we do when something threatens our people. Marcus's eyes found Seraphine's. And she's my people now. The words hit Seraphina like a physical blow. No one had ever claimed her, protected her. Not for politics, not for power, not for advantage. Just because she was his god, she stepped forward and raised her voice. I invoke the right of challenge, she announced. By ancient law, I demand trial by combat. My champion against yours. To the death. The crowd went silent again. The right of challenge had not been invoked in centuries. It was old magic, old law, binding and absolute. Whoever lost, died. Whoever won was declared innocent. Varric smiled his nice smile. I accept, he said. And my champion is Karth the Undying. A door opened at the side of the hall. The thing that walked through was barely recognizable as a vampire. Karth was 8 feet tall, wrapped in muscle and scar tissue. His eyes were empty pits. His hands ended in claws that could tear through steel. He had been alive for 300 years and had never lost a fight. He looked at Marcus like he was already dead. This is your champion? Varric laughed. A human? This will be over in seconds. Marcus looked at the monster walking toward him. He remembered every fight he had ever been in. Every time he had been outmatched. Every time he had won anyway. You'd be surprised, he said, how much damage a human can do in a few seconds. The fight began without warning. Karth charged like a living tank, claws aimed at Marcus's throat. Marcus moved. Not faster than the vampire, because nothing was faster than a vampire, but differently, sideways, unpredictably. He rolled under the first swing and came up behind Karth, already moving again before the vampire could turn. Karth was strong. Karth was fast. But Karth was also predictable. 300 years of easy victories had made him sloppy. He expected his enemies to fight back. He didn't expect them to run. Marcus ran. He grabbed a chair from the edge of the arena and threw it. He ducked behind pillars. He used every piece of furniture, every obstacle, every dirty trick he had learned in a lifetime of unfair fights. He bled from a dozen cuts. His ribs cracked when Karth finally landed a blow. But he kept moving. Stand still and die with honor, Karth growled. Honor is for people who can afford it, Marcus gasped. I'm just trying to survive. 4 minutes. The fight lasted 4 minutes in the end. Marcus won because he understood something the vampires had forgotten. Power wasn't about strength. It wasn't about speed. It was about knowing what you were willing to sacrifice. Karth lunged one final time, claws extended for the killing blow. Marcus didn't dodge. He stepped into the attack. The claws tore through his shoulder, deep enough to scrape bone. But Marcus's hands found a broken piece of chair, sharp as any stake, and drove it into Karth's chest. The vampire's eyes went wide. Then empty. Karth the Undying fell. Marcus stood over him, covered in blood, barely able to breathe. The hall was completely silent. Humans, Marcus said, his voice rough with pain, are really good at killing things bigger than us. It's basically our whole thing. Then his knees buckled, and everything went dark. Marcus woke up 3 days later in a bed that was softer than anything he had ever felt. For a moment, he thought he was dead. Then the pain hit, and he knew he was very much alive. His shoulder was wrapped in bandages. His ribs ached with every breath. His entire body felt like it had been run over by a cargo ship. But he was breathing. His heart was beating. And somewhere nearby, he could hear voices. "He should be dead," someone was saying. "The blood loss alone should have killed him. And the poison on Korth's claws. Humans are more resilient than we thought," another voice replied. It was Seraphina. "Their immune systems are aggressive. They fight infections that would kill other species. But he's still just a human." How did he defeat Korth? By being smarter and more stubborn. There was something in Seraphine's voice that Marcus had never heard before. Pride, maybe, or wonder. He refused to die. I think that confuses death. Marcus tried to sit up. The pain nearly knocked him out again, but he managed it. The door opened, and Seraphina walked in. She was alone. "You're awake," she said. Apparently. His voice sounded like gravel. "Did we win?" "We won." She sat in a chair beside his bed. "Lord Varric has been executed. His conspiracy was exposed. His allies have been arrested or scattered. My position is secure." "Good. That's good." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. "How long was I out?" 3 days. The doctors said it was a miracle you survived. Doctors always say that about me. I'm starting to think they're just surprised I'm still around." Seraphina laughed. It was a small sound, soft and genuine, nothing like the cold amusement of other vampires. "You are a strange creature, Marcus Cole. You've said that before. It remains true." She was quiet for a moment, watching him with those blood-red eyes. "Your debt is paid. You saved my life. You killed Korth. By any measure, you have more than fulfilled your obligation. You're free to go." Marcus opened his eyes and looked at her. Really looked at her. He saw the ancient creature, the princess, the predator. But he also saw something else. A woman who had been alone her whole life, surrounded by people who wanted her power or her blood or her death. A woman who had never been chosen by anyone. "Do you want me to go?" he asked. Seraphina didn't answer immediately. Her hands were folded in her lap, perfectly still, but something in her eyes was uncertain. "What I want is not relevant. You have your freedom. You can return to your ship, your life, whatever future you wish to build. That's not what I asked." Marcus sat up straighter, ignoring the pain. "Do you want me to go? Yes or no?" The silence stretched between them. Then Seraphina spoke, and her voice was barely more than a whisper. "No, I do not want you to go. Then I'm staying." "You would give up your freedom? For what?" "For something worth staying for." Marcus reached out and took her hand. It was cold, like all vampire skin, but it felt right in his grip. "I've been running freight for 15 years. Before that, I was drinking my way through every bar in the outer systems. Before that, I was a Navy washout with anger problems. My whole life, I've been looking for something that mattered. Something worth fighting for." He met her eyes. "I found it." Seraphina stared at their joined hands. In 300 years, no one had touched her like this. Not with affection. Not with choice. Her guards served because they were commanded. Her family loved her because blood demanded it. This human held her hand because he wanted to. "You will not live forever," she said. "In a century, you will be gone. Perhaps less, given how recklessly you fight." "Probably less," Marcus agreed. "I'm not exactly careful." "And you would spend your remaining years here? With me? Among creatures who see your kind as cattle?" "I'd spend my remaining years with you," Marcus said. "The rest of it is just scenery." Seraphina was quiet for a long time. Then she did something she had never done before. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. "I have had centuries of safety. she whispered. Centuries of boredom. Centuries of being surrounded by people who feared me or wanted something from me. I think I would rather have decades of you. Is that the vampire way of asking me to stay? That is the vampire way of proposing. Marcus blinked. Wait, what? You heard me. Serafina pulled back and looked at him with something like challenge in her eyes. I'm asking you to stay. Not as my guard. Not as payment for a debt. As my partner. My equal. My husband? If that is the human word for it. Marcus laughed. It hurt his ribs, but he couldn't help it. Princess, I'm a 43-year-old freight hauler with 17 credits and a bad knee. I punch things for a living. I snore. I leave my clothes on the floor. And you want to marry me? I want someone who sees me as a person, not a throne. I want someone who fights for me because he chooses to, not because he's commanded. Her voice softened. I want you, Marcus Cole, broken parts and all. He was quiet for a moment. Then he squeezed her hand. Okay, he said. Okay. Yeah, okay. Let's get married. He grinned despite the pain. But I'm going to need a better suit. And maybe some dental work. If I'm going to be vampire royalty, I should probably fix this chipped tooth. Serafina laughed again, louder this time. And when she kissed him, her broken fangs scraped gently against his lip. A reminder of the night they met. The wedding was small by vampire standards, which meant only 500 guests. Marcus stood at the altar in his new suit, trying not to look as terrified as he felt. When Serafina walked toward him in a dress of midnight black, his breath caught in his throat. She was beautiful. She was terrifying. She was his. News of the marriage spread through the Dominion and beyond. A vampire princess had married a human. Not as a servant. Not as property. As an equal. The implications shook the foundations of vampire society. Over the years that followed, things began to change. Human advisors appeared in vampire courts. Human soldiers trained alongside vampire warriors. Trade agreements were signed. Alliances were formed. The galaxy watched as two species that had always seen each other as predator and prey learned to stand side by side instead. And in the great hall of the Crimson Meridian, a portrait hung in a place of honor. It showed a human man with tired eyes and scarred knuckles, standing beside a vampire princess who looked at him like he had put the stars in the sky. They were holding hands. They were both smiling. The plaque beneath the portrait read, Marcus Cole, the first Fang breaker, who taught the Dominion that humanity bows to no one, but will stand beside those worthy of them. Below that, in smaller letters, someone had added another line. Also, he made really good coffee. Marcus had insisted on that part. On quiet nights, when the ship drifted through the space between stars, Serafina would find him on the observation deck. He would be standing there, watching the universe spin past, a cup of coffee in his hand. She would stand beside him, and they would say nothing for hours. They didn't need to say anything. They had already said everything that mattered. He was hers, and she was his. And that was enough. It would always be enough.